Hey now, we are getting over, and I am the Silver King, Adam Silverstein, here to lead you through these hard times. With a special edition of your favorite professional wrestling podcast. That's right, Getting Over is back once again, and it is a very special show for you today because not only are we breaking down NXT an entire day early, we are welcoming in none other than TNA legend and WWE producer Abyss to the show for the first time. The Silver King had an opportunity to sit down one-on-one with the former NWA World Heavyweight Champion, TNA X Division Champion, former NWA World Tag Team Champion, alongside AJ Styles, and one of the most notable characters in the history of TNA wrestling, for a conversation about him being featured in the WWE 2K25 expansion pack called Dunk and Destruction, alongside the Great Khali, some guy named Tyrese Halliburton, Shaquille O'Neal, and of course, New York Knicks star Jalen Brunson. We will circle back to Abyss momentarily. We're going to break down the entire week in NXT on the show as well. Off the top, allow the Silver King to remind you that here at Getting Over,
it's all about Defy.
So head over to Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Leave a 5-star rating on Apple. Take a little extra time. Leave a 5-star written review. If you do, we will read it live right here on the show. Also, please do not forget,
I happen to love the number 5.
and I hope you do as well, because for $5 a month or $50 for the entire year, you can become an official Getting Overhead. Just visit buymeacoffee.com/gettingover. Sign up. You'll get bonus audio, the fastest 5 minutes in professional wrestling, instant reactions to every major show, and exclusive news analysis posts every week. Again, you can get that at buymeacoffee.com/gettingover. We would appreciate your financial support as we remain a free podcast and an ad-free podcast as well. Please don't forget to subscribe to us on YouTube at Getting Overcast. Not only do you get full-length audio episodes, you get full-length video interviews there as well. In terms of today's conversation with Abyss, it'll be published on YouTube with a slight delay. Our video editor, who generously gives us his time and helps us get some of these interviews edited and up on YouTube, I believe he's currently on vacation, so we're happy that he's getting time off, but that means a little bit of a delay when it comes to getting the Abyss video up. Nevertheless, it will be published on YouTube at Getting Overcast. And as I teased Tuesday, Getting Over will be giving away a free copy of WWE 2K25. You need to follow us on social media at Getting Overcast on Twitter, at Getting Over on Blue Sky. You get episode drops, news, analysis, highlights, all of that good stuff. You can send in questions and comments for the show, and you can enter to win a copy of WWE 2K25. So again, that's at Getting Overcast on Twitter, at Getting Over on Blue Sky. Let's not waste any more time. Let's get into today's show. We're going to kick it off with our conversation with Abyss. And on the back end, we will have your full breakdown of Tuesday night in NXT. There are timestamps in the episode description, as always, so you can bounce back and forth. If you want to hear the NXT breakdown first and circle back to the interview later, you're welcome to do that. As always, I hope you listen to the show in the order it has been provided. With that said, allow the Silver King to welcome in TNA legend Abyss to the show. I hope you enjoy. Excited to welcome Chris Parks, much better known to many of you as Abyss, to the show for the first time. You will be able to play as Abyss starting Wednesday, June 25th, as he is one of 5 featured additions to WWE 2K25 as part of the Dunk and Destruction pack, alongside the Great Khali, Shaquille O'Neal, Tyrese Halliburton, and my favorite NBA player, as all of you know listening, Jalen Brunson. Chris, great to have you here. This has to be a real unique situation for you, becoming a playable character for the first time in a WWE video game. And my understanding as well is that Janice is available as a weapon. What has this been like, seeing yourself in the game? And was there any conversation about which version of Abyss would be in the game? Because it kind of looks like this one's molded a little bit more after you from the early 2010s.
Yeah. First of all, it's a dream come true for be direct about it. It's a dream come true to be in the video game. I never thought it would materialize. I never thought it was an option. back when I was at TNA, the TNA and WWE working together was never on the table, never an option. So, this being included in the video game, and when I was approached about it last year, I had to pinch myself. I couldn't believe it was a reality. And to see it come to life, and to see the initial, stuff that's been released with the entrance and the music and Janice, and, it brings me down a great memory lane. It's an honor that WWE wanted to include me in it. I can't emphasize enough what an honor it is to be in that game, and WWE to want me in it.
No, that's great. And you mentioned, WWE and TNA, especially back then, would not even think about working together. The fact that that's happening now as like the TNA stalwart, like you were from the beginning, you worked there during highs and lows and really everything in between. How wild is that for you to be witnessing? Especially, I mean, it's primarily what's happening with NXT right now, but seeing that on a consistent basis, Trick Williams being the TNA champion, a WWE superstar as the TNA champion, how does a TNA veteran kind of look at this partnership and these developments?
I just think it's groundbreaking. I think it's incredible. Like I said, it was never an option when I was there. It was never on the table for whatever reason. To see WWE and TNA collaborate together, it's thrilling. It's something that I'm extremely proud of. I think it's, WWE reaching out to want to work with other companies, I think is just massive. And I think the number one benefactor of all that is the fans, the audience. They get to see the collaboration, the crossover. Like you mentioned Trick Williams, and Joe Hendry and just those things. And now me in the video game. And it's just, it's a incredibly, I think it's, groundbreaking, not to, I think that both companies working together, like I said, the number one thing, the fans really benefit the most from it, all around.
Yeah, for sure. Now, being in this game kind of creates the opportunity for fans to finally live out a couple dream matches. Abyss versus Mankind. Obviously, you fought Mick Foley in TNA, but the Mankind character specifically has been a dream for some. Certainly, The Undertaker. I believe you once said that WWE made you an offer to sign and fight him. I think it was WrestleMania 23. I'd love to hear whether your perspective on turning that down changed over time. And I always wondered as well whether WWE ever reached back out to you after the fact with any other offers or opportunities, or if it was kind of like a one-shot deal, sign now, do this match, this is your chance to come in, or was that just one of a couple times that maybe you guys had conversations?
There were a couple times that we had conversations, and they always went really well. My thing at the time, I was with TNA since the beginning. I was there from the start, and that made it, for me personally, extremely hard to part and to leave. I felt like I was, one of the cornerstones of the company, along with AJ Styles, and the Samoa Joes and Jeff Jarrett, obviously, and Sting and Kurt Angle. And so I felt, an extreme sense of loyalty. I felt, I just had no interest. I was all about TNA at that time, and we did have a couple of conversations, over the years and so forth. And I think it's just a poetic story that, when my career ended, I was presented the opportunity to go there and become a producer for the biggest and the best wrestling company in the world. And that blew me away. That touched my heart and just really smacked me in the face of the opportunity of, I have an opportunity now to continue my career out of the ring as a producer and help younger talent and help the roster there achieve their goals and the company's goals. And, so it's been a full circle kind of thing. I never saw that this opportunity might arise. And when it did, it was extremely humbling and extremely exciting. and I love being there. Every day is a different adventure there. I said this in an earlier interview, but every day is a different adventure and a different challenge, and it's just so exciting. And everybody there, from top to bottom, roster, staff, crew, the level of passion that there is contagious, and it's exciting to be a part of it.
What ultimately led to you making that decision to join WWE as the producer? Did someone kind of build a bridge toward making it happen? Was it something you actively pursued? How did that come about?
The opportunity was presented to me kind of out of the blue. I was still wrestling. I was definitely on the back nine, as they say.
Sure.
My career was definitely winding down. I was much more towards the end than towards the beginning. So when the opportunity presented itself, I had a decision to make. Am I ready to step away from active competitive, competition in a ring, to be behind the scenes producing? And for me, it was an easy decision at that point in time. I have no regrets. I had an incredible career, incredible bucket list. I'll never be one of those, grizzled veterans that's unhappy with the way the business unfolded. For me, it gave me everything. I had an opportunity to work with, a bucket list I could sit here for an hour and rattle off the names of guys that I was able to work with. That was a dream come true, and go out there and create magic together. So, when the opportunity came, it was a pretty easy decision for me, and it was life changing in the fact that I wasn't going to compete in the ring anymore, but now I'm competing behind the scenes, and helping the younger talent and just the whole roster in general, achieve their goals, achieve the company's goals, and that's just as rewarding to me as any match I ever had.
There always seems to be a bit of a misconception from fans about what producers actually do, for WWE and really all wrestling companies. Has there been any part of that transition for you that has been particularly difficult, or something that you figured, well, I'm a veteran, I've been doing this for so many years, I'm going to walk right into this and know exactly what I'm doing? And I've certainly worked with other producers and agents in the past, so I know the job. But now that you've been in this role for about 6 years or so, is there anything surprising about it?
Nothing really surprising about it, but it's not an easy job. It's challenging in a good way, in a great way. No 2 days are the same. Every day is a different challenge, and when I walked in there, I thought I was pretty smart, and I was, but nowhere near as smart as what's unfolded over the last 7 years. I've learned so much in the last 7 years from WWE, from being around minds like Michael Hayes, from being around obviously Triple H and Bruce Pritchard and Ed Koskey, Ryan Ward, Brian James, those guys, they're brilliant people, and you can't help but learn from them. And the best advice I could give myself was just be a sponge, getting this education from these, these great minds, and then taking that and adding that on to my experiences that I had over my 19-year career, the do's and the don'ts. I know a lot of the don'ts just as much as I know a lot of the do's, so I know the mistakes and the pitfalls as well as the successes and the great things. Taking that and incorporating it with what I'm able to learn from the minds of the people I just listed to you, it's created a perfect storm. I feel like I've grown so much in the last 7 years, and just learned more and more and more about the business that I didn't know. And now I'm exposed to that, and I'm able to incorporate that into when I do work with talent, taking my experiences from my career along with what I'm learning every day there. It creates a perfect storm.
It's interesting because a lot of times when people think about Abyss, they think about the crazy spots and the wild stuff that you did that I know physically you're definitely paying for still today. But I always looked at you as an incredible talker, a great kind of character actor as well. So in this role, do you feel like you have a greater impact in terms of the in-ring or more of the characters and the promos and that aspect of the business?
I would say a little bit of both, but probably more leaning on the in ring.
Okay.
Yeah, sure. The writers work a lot on verbiage and character development, and I work more on as a producer
Mhm.
the character development in the ring, what you actually see in the ring. So,
Right.
taking creatives' goals and the company's goals of what they want to see out of this match, whoever it is. I'm the liaison between that. So I take it to the talent, collaborate with them. We sit, we get in the ring, we talk about it, we craft it,
Mhm.
sculpt it.
Sure.
That is fun. The game planning is my favorite part. And then seeing it come to life and seeing it be successful is, that's the home run. That's the grand slam home run. When that happens. So, um, you know, me working directly with the talent, more so on the match side of things and the action side of things is what I do. And like I said, it's an incredible challenge. It's never the same thing, and it's always a lot of fun, and it's always a great learning experience.
Is there a particular match or set of matches, feud, whatever the case might be, that you're particularly proud of from these past 7 years?
Um, there's a ton.
I know it's every week. I know, yeah.
It's every week,
Yeah.
and I'm lucky. The talent at WWE, I can't emphasize it enough. Just how all the men and women there, just incredibly passionate, incredibly smart, brilliant, attention to detail. They care. Uh, they want the best product, the best possible product for themselves and for the company. And when you're in that setting and everybody's rowing in the same direction, accompanied with the minds that I just mentioned off to you a little bit ago, that process is amazing. A couple of things that pop off to me right away. The Drew McIntyre CM Punk Hell in the Cell back in October. I just thought it was a masterpiece. Those guys absolutely went out there and just left everything in the ring, and I was extremely proud of them and proud of that moment. But there's I've forgotten more. Things move fast. I've forgotten more than I would like to forget because it just moves so fast. But just every experience, whether it's with a Drew McIntyre, a Sheamus, a Seth Rollins, you know, AJ Styles, Damian Priest, and I could go on and on and on. CM Punk, and just the talent that I had the opportunity to work with and to collaborate with and learn from those people as well. I learn from the talent every day. It's just it's an incredible atmosphere, an incredible job, incredible learning experience.
I was hoping you'd mention the Drew and Punk match because that was legitimately special. That's one of those that
It really was.
you don't soon forget. You see it and it ends and you say, that's a match I'll watch 10 times. You know what I mean? Like that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I was extremely happy and proud for those two. They poured everything, their heart and soul into that. Yeah. And the preparations leading up to it. The two consummate pros, and when you have that, that's the end result. That's the product that you end up getting.
Yeah, couple more. I'll get you out of here. You basically made your WWE debut during the pandemic as AJ Styles statistician, which was such a fun development for a lot of TNA fans who watched you guys feud and obviously team back in the day. It only lasted like 3 weeks. Did you think it had longer legs than that, given the fan reception, or was it always supposed to be like an in and out type of character?
I think it was in and out. You mentioned that was the heart of the pandemic,
right?
And there were, that was obviously a crazy time in the world, and we were shooting everything out of Orlando, and then Tampa and St. Pete, out of Florida. And there it was just, there was travel restrictions and people unable to make the shows for whatever reason, and that opportunity came about out of nowhere. It was just kind of a spur of the moment thing. And I'd never really thought it had a ton of legs to it. I was just kind of happy that it was happening, and along for the ride to see where it went and how long it went, and I was very happy with it. It was a great nostalgic moment to see me and AJ on screen on a WWE program together again. I thought was a really cool thing.
It was indeed. So look, given the Royal Rumble is the one event where someone can come in and appear as a surprise without any explanation or really that much time in the ring, was there ever a consideration for you taking one of those spots the last handful of years? Is there any consideration where that might happen, or are you just done and done?
I'm done. I'm retired, and like I said, I couldn't be happier, man. I have the greatest job in the world. A producer for WWE, helping talent, producing matches. Watching them go out there, no matter who the talent is, and bring the story to life. In front of millions of people. That is the most rewarding thing to me in the world. So physically, in the ring, I'm done. I'm happy. I couldn't be happier. Like I said, this job, I get as much intrinsic reward from it than I did when I wrestled in the ring. I really truly feel that way. So I'm very fortunate to be where I'm at.
That's great. Well, look, if you want to see Abyss in the ring again, what you need to do is get the Dunk and Destruction pack. He's
Absolutely.
there.
Available tomorrow.
Available tomorrow alongside the great Khali, Shaquille O'Neal, Tyrese Halliburton, and, like I said, Jalen Brunson, all part of WWE 2K25, available Wednesday, June 25th. Chris, really appreciate the time. Great to meet you for the first time, and keep up the great work with WWE.
Adam, it was real nice to meet you too. Thank you, sir.
Well, that was a lot of fun. First time we've had the opportunity to interview someone largely known for their work with TNA Wrestling on this program. Certainly hope we get future opportunities to do exactly that. In fact, Silver King may have something cooking coming up in a week or two, pretty damn soon, with a notable name, let's say, in TNA, and it's probably not who you're thinking. Let's just put it that way as a teaser for right now. We have not confirmed that interview, but I wanted to give some appreciation to 2K for setting this up with Chris Parks, and certainly Abyss for sitting down with us. It was great to speak to him. A really unique look at, the role of a producer in WWE, his career to this point, and of course, largely how he got his start in WWE, both in that role for 3 weeks with AJ Styles and, of course, now doing producing behind the scenes. So that was awesome. And we were excited to bring that to you, but we still have a lot of show left. We're going to break down everything that happened Tuesday night on NXT, and plenty went down on that show. Fatal Influence talked trash to Blake Monroe backstage, with Fallon Henley saying she learned where she stands in the women's division, at the bottom. And JC Jane also added that they will maintain control of NXT and the title. JC promised they'd be ringside for the match. There wasn't much to take away from this. Solid enough segment, setting up the expected Monroe-Henley bout next week. I should also note, this was taped Tuesday night, so we're actually kind of doing this instant analysis style, which is not something we normally do when it comes to TV breakdowns. I like to have it digest overnight, take some time into the next day, put my thoughts together. So if I miss something from NXT, just know that's the reason why, and we will certainly circle back and touch on it if it's major on our Thursday show when we talk AEW, or more likely just next week in this NXT space. But the number one contendership for the women's championship was on the line. Jordynne Grace, Jada Parker, Lash legend, Izzy Dame. There was a tape promo from all four women that started the show. It was rather formulaic, but Grace was more demonstrative, and this being a must-win for her. So it kind of seemed like, coming out of this, that Jordynne was just going to win this match. Later backstage, Izzy gave Tatum Paxley an Izzy doll as a gift, asking her to join her ringside for the match. Zaruka came up, calling Dame's effort pathetic and transparent, but Paxley followed her even as the faces tried to dissuade her. Izzy then introduced her to the calling and held her hand as they walked out of the picture toward the ring. Nice setup for the match, continuation of the story. Really the only problem before the bell was the entrance music. Grace's awful new theme, it now starts with a sound bite because of course it does. And that sound says, "It's not over until I win," in a man's voice. Typical Def Rebel bullshit. I could not have imagined that they would have made her awful theme last week even worse. But you know what? Congratulations to them. They succeeded.
Well, that was a disaster. What the hell was that? What was that, huh? This is unacceptable.
It is. It's unacceptable, and it was total dog shit. And by the way, coming after Jada Parker's weak-ass music and Lash Legend's mediocre theme, it was like one deflating entrance after another leading into this match. It did none of them any favors whatsoever. All right, let's talk about the wrestling. This was hot right at the bell, as expected.
4 big men slapping meat equals excitement.
There was a car crash of sorts ringside before Tatum helped Izzy by pulling Jada's leg, but the referee chose not to eject her for reasons. Zaruka came down with Zarya literally picking up Tatum and bringing her backstage like a child. It became clear at this juncture that despite being called an eliminator, it was not an elimination match as I had hoped last week. Parker hit a teardrop on Grace and a nice Samoan drop on Legend. Dame took Grace down with a swinging Uranagi. Legend then basically deadlifted and tossed Parker, which was kind of odd. Jada got her back with her backstabber. Jordynne interrupted a double superplex, flipping over their bodies for a sunset flip Tower of Doom. Not the smoothest, but it did look cool. Grace hit the world's strongest slam, but missed a Vader bomb on Parker, who caught her with Hypnotic, knocking her outside. Dame flew off the ropes with a codebreaker. Legend added a huge boot on Parker before kicking Izzy out of the ring. Then she hit Lash extension on Jada, but Jordynne broke the fall with a double stomp over the ropes. She booted Lash outside and hit a torture rack bomb on Jada for the 1-2-3. This match, straight up,
Banger.
no question about that. Also,
Big meaty man slapping meat. That's what I want.
it's what we wanted to see. It's what we got. Not as well wrestled as it could have been with more veteran talent, but each of the 4 women got a legitimate chance to stand out in their own right. The rack bomb from Grace was probably necessary, just given Parker's size. Beast mode, it's not easy to execute on someone like her, but I actually prefer the rack bomb as Jordynne's finisher long term. I'm glad it came down to Jordynne and Lash, and ultimately Grace getting the bigger stage at WWE Evolution, challenging JC for the title. It makes a lot of sense despite it being Legend's hometown of Atlanta. Given limited space on the card, particularly when it comes to NXT talent, you really want to put on the best match as possible. And there's no question that in 2025, Jordynne is the better talent. This will be her 4th shot, by the way, at the NXT title. And due to that being the case, one must assume that she's going to beat JC in 3 weeks. I do not see how you would have Jane beat Grace. You have her go 0-4, even with a call-up. That wouldn't be great. Jordynne's momentum since joining NXT, it has slowed considerably. So a title win, it's actually necessary to juice her back up again. Plus, having a dominant woman atop the division, that should actually allow the North American title scene to get enhanced. Sol Ruca basically hasn't done anything since her last retention, which I believe was over Kalani Jordan. Jada taking the fall, that was the only negative here, but she ate so many signatures and finishers, needing that much to get pinned, it's perfectly fine at the end of the day, even if it probably should have been Dame under Grace, but I understand why they didn't do it, because she's basically leading this culling faction. 3.75 stars, B+. Oh, regarding Zaruka kidnapping Tatum, interesting. Didn't expect that. Love that she's getting weekly TV time now, but again, it needs to be more than her being a 4th wheel in a feud between 2 over baby faces and a member of a cult. They got to give her more than that. TNA Championship was on the line. Trick Williams defending against Josh Briggs. This opened the show, and like the women, if we're being fair,
Oh, we got 2 big meaty men bumping me tonight.
Williams fully flipped out of a chokeslam, which was impressive. Briggs then tumbled out of a powerbomb setup for a chokeslam and a late rope break by Trick. Thought the powerbomb deal was a botch, but it was the plan, just not as smooth as I guess it could have been executed. But these were indeed 2 big men bumping meat, so you got to give them a little bit of grace here and there. Briggs won a duel with boots. Williams got some athletic kicks in. Briggs then hit his lariat, but missed a moonsault coming back, allowing Williams to hit trick shot and retain the title. This banged more than I expected. The chaos of it all really added to my enjoyment. I'll reiterate, trick shot is an utter shit finisher. I will say it every single time until he actually changes it. I was a bit surprised Briggs didn't go for a fall after the lariat. I thought that was his finisher. Alas, Williams retaining, that was a no-brainer. It kind of took the drama out of the match, but it was extremely strong work as a show opener, and it set the tone for a really entertaining evening. Trick grabbed the mic after the bell, demanding some respect be put on his name. Mandy Rose must have been fuming at that. He called himself the greatest TNA champion ever before Joe Hendry interrupted with an entrance-aided attack from behind. Now, it had been announced over the weekend that the rematch will happen at TNA Slammiversary in July. On that same TNA show from the weekend, Mike Santana demanded to join the main event, making it a triple threat. That was not made official. So as of right now, it's one-on-one, but a triple threat does make the most sense, as Santana could then pin Hendry, win the title, and WWE gets to protect Williams as he drops it, presumably moving him back into a feud with Obafemi this summer before a main roster call-up. The attack on NXT, that was nothing, but it did give us an opportunity to kind of dive deeper into the TNA booking. So for this show, it was welcome. What was most surprising about this is Hendry got a really weak reaction. Now, whether that means the crowd was bad or the shine has worn off, I'm not exactly sure, but I have said for the last year and a half on this show, and we've talked about Joe Hendry, I'm proud of him. I'm happy for him. It's great that he's over and that this crazy, silly gimmick is working. But the entire time, it has always seemed to me like something with a short shelf life. Now, what's interesting about Hendry, is he's seemingly always able to reinvent himself here and there. But if WWE does sign him, which, again, it comes across to me as something they're doing because he's popular rather than because he truly fits in what WWE is trying to do. But if they do sign him and he debuts with this gimmick, the I Believe in Joe Hendry stuff, I think that'll work, for 6 months or so. But at some point, he's really going to need to switch some stuff up because this is not something that he's going to be able to do for the remainder of his career. And I feel like it's already starting to get long in the tooth. I'm not a weekly TNA viewer, so I can't necessarily say how those crowds are reacting to it. But as someone who sees him in drips and drabs on WWE television, even for me, it's kind of enough. I don't dislike him, but the crowd reaction, it felt to me like they were sharing the same sentiment that I largely have about him. We'll see if that was a one-off. Maybe it's completely different. Next time he shows up, they go crazy for him again. But don't forget, this is a guy who, when he made that surprise appearance in NXT, the cameras literally shook in the WWE Performance Center. That was not put on. That's how crazy the audience went. They didn't boo him this time. They didn't not cheer him either. But the reaction compared to that was maybe 10%. And that's why I think the shine might have worn off, but we'll see what the situation really is in future appearances. Williams backstage complained to High Rise about Hendry getting up on him during the show. Wesley said he already spoke to Ava, got a match set for next week. The heavies looked around. Trick said something under his breath that was really tough to understand, but he promised that he would owe them one if they all took care of Hendry. Even later backstage, Hendry said he'd show up to NXT whenever he wants. He also cut a brief promo on Wes. It was probably his weakest appearance to date, given what I just mentioned earlier. I kind of like how Trick and Wes, they've made amends, and they're now working toward a similar goal as heels after both being faces previously. It's a really smart way to give Trick some backup as a heel without actually putting him in a faction or a group or anything like that. Tavian Heights backstage blamed Charlie Dempsey for purposefully injuring him during training to prevent him from beating Javon Williams and leaving NQCC. He had previously showed himself getting stitches on his, I think it was upper lip, might have been bottom lip. Dempsey offered to take his place, but Heights showed off a mask that allowed him to wrestle. It was again real contentious with the NQCC, and once again, Ren Sinclair stole the show, even though she's not being used outside of these segments. So we had Evans against Heights. Tavian was out there looking like Bane with this mask. He took Javon to the ground early, controlling momentum before Evans went full-on bouncy. Heights did a great feint into a lariat out of the corner, plus a perfect high-angle German suplex. Evans came back with his springing heel kick and a double jump springboard tornado splash for the clean 1-2-3. Jasper Troy then caught Javon celebrating with Dark Hole Slam. This was less than 30 seconds after the match ended. Definitely an impactful attack there. Hell of a match. Another breakout moment for Tavion, who impresses every single time he gets into the ring. The guy has personality, character, in-ring ability. I'm not sure if the promo is there, but he has to be given an opportunity on the mic or else we're never going to know. Either way, Tavian Heights, he has
it. You have it. You couldn't get rid of it. You couldn't sell it if you wanted to. You are it.
This was obviously the expected finish with Javon winning and Tavian remaining in NQCC. And I'm thankful that's the case because I truly do not understand the idea of breaking them up. They should probably be teaming and going after the tag team titles, just given the way the NXT roster is constructed right now. But Heights' ceiling remains legitimately high, and I'm extremely interested to see what happens if he's able to go solo and NXT becomes a bit less crowded in the men's singles division. Obafemi opened hour 2 of NXT with the fans changing their chant for him. It was markedly worse. Femi put himself over for holding the championship since the start of the year, saying all his title contenders, while capable, are just footnotes in his legacy. Oba said he's becoming restless while idle, not having legitimate competition because he craves fighting. So he challenged any man who believes he can actually stand up to him. Yoshiki Inamura answered, saying he's in NXT to chase glory, and when he went back to Japan, he realized how much he missed NXT, the culture, and the passion of the fans, and he wants to pay them back by becoming their champion and leveling up. Femi, related to Inamura, said, hey, we're both strangers in this land, but I know there's a warrior behind that smile, and it seemed like that match was getting made. Except Jasper runs out, straight squashes Yoshi as he tries exiting, jumps on the apron, tells Femi they're not finished. Man, this was hitting for me all the way until Jasper ran out. This is what I said a couple weeks ago after that match. If you have Troy take Femi to the limit like he did, what exactly does he do after that? In theory, he should be the second most dominant person on the brand. So on one hand, I understand why he's still involved with Oba. On the other, it's immensely disappointing because I'm actually interested in seeing Yoshi get a one-on-one opportunity. Inamura's promo was great given his limited English, and Femi's made a lot of sense given his current situation. Oba is 6-0 defending the NXT title this year against a variety of challengers. And because the men's division is so thin at the top right now, there's limited opportunities for him to really shine. It's for that reason that when he made this announcement, I thought a main roster or TNA wrestler was going to surprise as the challenger. But Yoshi was a nice surprise. That continued the confusion, though, coming out of last week's show, where Inamura pinned Williams, then gave the TNA title shot agreed upon to Briggs for no reason, only to now go after a title held by someone he did not already beat in Femi. Why not just have Briggs pin Williams last week and have Inamura still do this the exact same way? Confusing this even more is that Yoshi got the pinfall over Trick, but now he needs to win a number 1 contendership over Jasper next week just to get in the title match. Troy already lost. Inamura pinned the TNA champion. You would think Troy winning this would be a no-brainer, Troy against Inamura, but I'm not so interested in a rematch compared to Inamura just getting the opportunity. And based on what happened with Evans that we mentioned a moment ago, I would bet Javon costs Jasper that match. Yoshi wins, fights Oba one-on-one, I presume on television, because I cannot imagine that match being for NXT Great American Bash, but maybe I'm wrong because it's only like 2.5 weeks away at this point. We had Ricky Saints against Ashanti the Adonis. It sounded like Saints' entrance theme had been enhanced for the better. Either that or it hit a little bit more this time than it did previously. Saints dominated at the bell, hitting old school early. Adonis at the cash out, which I guess was his finisher, but Saints easily kicked out, so maybe not. Ricky hit a sharp-ass tornado DDT, followed by a rope run spear and Rochambeau for the expected win. Just what it needed to be so Saints could pick up a little bit of momentum. I actually believe Ashanti remains underutilized because he's always flashing talent in the ring. He's got a character. He's quality on the mic, but obviously he's a couple pegs lower than Saints on the NXT pecking order, at least right now. Ethan Page interrupted on the Titantron, but the video stuttered, leaving Saints confused. That created an opening for Page to attack from behind and lay him out. Not with Ego's Edge, but rather Rochambeau. Ironic that Ricky, who uses that as his finisher, took the move worse than Ashanti did moments earlier. Now, this was unfortunately a near parallel to what we just talked about with Trick and Hendry. You got to be more creative than doing the same post-match attack twice, not just on the same show, but on the same hour of television. Page jumping Saints that was executed far better, don't get it twisted, but it was nevertheless repetitive, other than the Titantron bit, which, yeah, okay, that was pretty damn inventive. Now, I presume Ricky is winning the title back at Great American Bash, but at this point, it's really tough to say with this division. It does feel like some fresh blood needs to really work its way up besides those two, and hopefully we'll be getting that this summer. Ava found Page later, angry he is still not abiding by her edict of acting professionally. Page said Saints got what he deserved, and while he's trying to be on his best behavior, Ricky keeps pushing his buttons. Page suggested she just keep Saints away from him if she wants peace. She demanded they meet in her office next week and settle their problem. So Ethan asked Siri to call Vanity Project for him. Then we saw Hank and Tank having been attacked with chairs backstage. That attack was surely from the calling, given what Shawn Spears spoke about earlier in the show. I'm uninterested in that pairing, but at least it should be a win for Hank and Tank. Conversely, I'm very interested in what's happening with Page and Saints. Smells to me like we might actually get a loser leaves NXT match with the title on the line. And I'd be even more invested in that because WWE does not use that stipulation anywhere near enough, even though people frequently move from NXT to the main roster. So they're literally leaving the territory, but they just don't really run that stipulation. For this feud, and given their ages, it makes a lot of sense, and I hope they actually do it. 2 Florida Gators defensive players, George Gums Jr. and Tyreek Sapp, they were randomly backstage at NXT, which obviously popped me. They were in a segment with Miles Bourne, who basically put them over for their on-field ability and a viral moment against Florida State last season. Lexus King interrupted with Bourne seemingly not hearing him, King remembering he was deaf, and Bourne saying he actually heard him the entire time. Anyway, it got heated. The Gators actually got to take a couple shots at King, noting that his beard looked like it was painted on. Again, probably popped me more than most, but this was like meshing my 2 interests together. And guess what? I'm allowed to have a level of bias when it comes to sports, not wrestling, but sports. You know why?
This is my show. My show.
Exactly. Decent enough setup for the Bourne King match next week. We had Tony D'Angelo against Stax in a Heritage Cup match. Suddenly, the trophy left vacant coming out of the weekend. Now, this was booked after Noam Dar was ruled out with an injury. It was not specified, but if he was vacating the cup after just returning and winning it back, that is obviously a huge concern for his health and career. Given Luca Crucifino had attempted to challenge Stax last week, I assumed he was going to be the easy replacement, and I was very surprised that was not the case, because instead, it was Tony D'Angelo being put in the match. Now, that made sense because D'Angelo previously held the Heritage Cup, but nevertheless, because Luca wanted to fight him a week ago, I just figured it would be Stax and Luca. D'Angelo cut a promo over the weekend saying Stax was basically working his way back into his good graces, while Stax called Luca his consigliere, even though Crucifino denied that last week in a backstage segment. In terms of the match, round 1 was a draw. Stax delivered a cheap shot after the bell. His random goons were again with him. D'Angelo speared Stax through the ropes, off the apron into the announce table, and then speared him again back inside for a 1-0 lead early in round 2. Tony injured his knee in round 3, got saved by the bell, with Stax taking it out and then evening the score with a small package in round 4, so it was 1-1. Crucifino finally ran out after not having been in D'Angelo's corner previously, basically just telling him to lock in. Tony hit a huge spinebuster. He hip-tossed Stax over the ropes into his goons. Crucifino stole a bucket away from one of them, accidentally nailing D'Angelo in the back as Stax hit a Bazaiku knee from behind to win the cup. Crucifino helped D'Angelo to his feet after the bell, only to take a single punch, with Tony screaming, "I don't trust you." And then he yelled at Stax, "I don't trust you either." Well, no shit, Sherlock. Why would you trust Stax? What a dumb thing to say. So Stax is now 2-0. Both wins aided by Luca. Neither match a blow-off as one would expect. That booking has been shit. Crucifino's booking in character, it has been nonsensical. D'Angelo, the most talented guy of this trio by far, is stuck trying to piece all this together and make it entertaining, but it's simply not working. There is no storyline, dare I say, in WWE, NXT, or AEW right now that has swan dived more drastically than this one. It is simply bad television, week after week, and there are no signs of it getting better anytime soon. In fact, this might be one of the greatest creative failings for NXT over the last few years.
That is one big pile of shit.
Oh, and the Heritage Cup, what are we doing? Just retire it at this point. I have no idea what the purpose it serves anymore is. It's not showcasing technical wrestling. It's not defended or utilized regularly. The rules fit European wrestling far better. I don't understand its purpose when there's a North American title already for the men. If NXT really wants an extra title, I'd much prefer a Cruiserweight Championship or a Hardcore title, or if you really need to feature the Evolve Championship, I really don't want them to do that. But any of those is better than the Heritage Cup at this point. Thea Hale had a crisis backstage ranting about losing her match last week. Lainey Reed came in talking shit, saying she got played like a fiddle and hasn't grown up at all. It was kind of random. I'm really not into Reed. I don't understand what the appeal is. In ring, out of ring, maybe she'll grow on me. Chase U had Cale Dixon and Uriah Connors frustrated in class, with Andre Chase saying he stood by his tough love from last week. Connors tried to stand up, saying it was a toxic environment. Chase reminded that they both asked to be part of it. So Dixon said that's the attitude that destroyed the university previously. Then they spoke about thinking it would be different this time, with Chase kind of hearing them in the background. I am just not into this. I'm not sure what else to say. It's taken way too long to get here, and it is nowhere near as interesting as the past Chase U. The only reason Chase U worked is because Andre Chase flew off the handle, cursed. He was a crazy teacher, and that translated to the ring. Now you want him to kind of soften himself and like play into the millennial mindset or the Gen Z mindset or whatever it is, that they can't be criticized and they can't get tough love. I mean, I understand that's what they're going for purposefully, but it's not entertaining television at all. So again, maybe they win me over at the end, but as of right now, none of these people are acting well enough to sell it, and it's not at all interesting. Dark State cut a group promo in a warehouse or something, saying they haven't been around, but they've still been making moves behind the scenes. Okay, sure. Somehow, Cutler James was more out of his element during this segment than any of the other times he's spoken among his stablemates and stuck out like a sore thumb. Dry as toast, not believable as someone creating chaos. As I've said before, it comes across like he's the other guy's accountant or something. I'll repeat. If NXT insists on keeping James in this group, and really they should not, he should be jettisoned from it immediately. But if they insist on keeping him in the group, he needs to shut his mouth and be a mute psycho, the most violent and dangerous guy out of the entire crew, the one others need to hold back, the unpredictable wild card. Otherwise, if they keep trying to make him the equal of the other three dudes from a promo and character standpoint, this faction is dead in the water. It's already gotten off to a terrible start, not following up with anything significant after major attacks to the biggest name on the brand. I'm sure there are some extenuating circumstances we don't know about, but it doesn't change the reality of what we're getting on television. Saquon Sugars is so far ahead of everyone else involved. It's ridiculous. Deion Lennox is an easy number 2, and the other two guys just are not there. Period. But the real sore thumb is Cutler James. I cannot believe they're just letting this guy go out there and cut dry promos that say absolutely nothing alongside some believable badass dudes. It's absolutely ridiculous. It is a shame. And that's really the best way I can put it. Oh, by the way, this segment was also sponsored by Progressive, which just makes me laugh every time Progressive is sponsoring like a cult meeting or a bunch of guys wreaking havoc on the brand. It's one thing if they're sponsoring a segment involving like the NXT champion cutting a promo in the ring, quite another when it's one of those other situations. So look, that wraps up NXT this week. There was clearly a lot on the show to discuss with NXT Great American Bash coming up just over 2 weeks from now. That card needs to get built in addition to what they've already booked for WWE Evolution. Clearly, the Women's Championship is not going to be on that show, which means the Women's North American title should most likely step up. Hopefully, we get some women's tag teams from NXT involved in the Women's Tag Team Championship match, unless there's a clear, solid booking for that involving one team against another team from the main roster. But I could definitely see this as a situation where you do multiple teams to get a lot of people on the card. I also believe you're going to have some NXT women involved on Evolution, just from the standpoint of like a battle royal or something like that. It would make a lot of sense to do something like that, get as many women on the show as possible. But as of right now, there are no matches announced for Great American Bash, only JC Jane against Jordynne Grace for WWE Evolution. And after SmackDown on Friday, there's just going to be 2 weeks of build to get to all three of those shows. The other, of course, being WWE Saturday Night's Main Event, where Goldberg and Gunther is already announced. So there's 2 total matches announced for 3 shows in 2 days, all the weekend of July 12th and 13th. So yeah, that is about it. I hope everyone enjoyed our interview with Abyss earlier in the show, the NXT breakdown as well. We will be back on Thursday talking all things AEW. Already in the podcast feed is your WWE Night of Champions Ultimate Preview. On Saturday, of course, we'll have your WWE Night of Champions Instant Analysis. So make sure you are sticking around and subscribing if you have not already for that. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter at Getting Overcast and Blue Sky at Getting Over for episode drops, news, analysis, highlights, all of that good stuff. You can also enter to win a free copy of WWE 2K25. Again, Twitter at Getting Overcast, Blue Sky at Getting Over. Please don't forget to subscribe to us on YouTube at Getting Overcast. Full-length audio episodes, full-length video interviews, though the Abyss one will be slightly delayed, but on YouTube at Getting Overcast. Please remember,
It's all about Defy.
So head over to Apple Podcasts and Spotify, leave a 5-star rating on Apple, take a little extra time, leave a 5-star written review. If you do, we will read it live right here on the show. And lastly,
I happen to love the number 5.
Sure hope you do as well, because for $5 a month or $50 for the entire year, you can become an official Getting Over head. Just visit buymeacoffee.com/gettingover. Sign up. You'll get bonus audio, the fastest 5 minutes in professional wrestling, instant reactions to every major show, and exclusive news analysis posts every week. Again, that is buymeacoffee.com/gettingover. We would appreciate your financial support. We remain a free show and an ad-free show, as we hope to always be, right here on the Getting Over Wrestling podcast. That's 2 episodes in the book, 2 more to come this week. This is the Silver King signing off, leaving you with just 3 final words. Bye for now.